Welcome to In Touch, Think STEM Career Podcast. I am Dr. Ayo Olufade, the host of In Touch, Think STEM Career Podcast. STEM is vital to our community because our community's health, economy, future depends on our solid foundation and participation in innovation taking place in the STEM field. As a result, this podcast explores the evolving world of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics in underrepresented community, including the Blacks, the Indigenous, the people of color, and people in Africa. As the STEM field continues to evolve, this podcast will continue and will attempt to connect with men and women who are champions of and in STEM education and careers to gain insight into how the BIPOC community can be part of the STEM innovation and how they can inspire us to support the creation of innovative solution for sustainable development that will contribute to a positive change in the BIPOC community for improving the quality of life. Today, I am privileged and I am fortunate and I am really blessed to have a member of our community, the BIPOC community. Not only is he an integral part of our community here in the United States of America, but at the same time, he's from Africa. So what a blessing indeed it is. His name is Gideon Obeng. He's a network engineer and soon to be a cloud engineer. Welcome, Gideon Obeng. How have you been?
Thank you, Dr. Ayer. I've been all right. I couldn't have asked for more better favors in my life. I just want to also say thank you for giving me this honor to invite me on your show. I do admire what you're doing here. And I've been watching, sneak peeking from behind. I was hoping one day I'll get the opportunity to be here and actually also have a conversation with you. So a brief background about myself. I'm currently, as you mentioned, I'm a computer network engineer. I'm aspiring and actually moving towards cloud engineering, and looking into the future. I've worked various IT positions around. I started from being a help desk personnel, worked my way up. I did a few physical aspect of networking as well in terms of pulling networking cables and terminating, splicing fibers and stuff like that. And then now we're here. So looking forward to pushing on, and whilst we're actually expecting better and greater futures as well. So thank you so much. It's an honor.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You came to my attention actually through a mutual friend, Dr. McNally, Hit McNally. I believe he was your teacher once upon a time.
Yes.
And now he's a great mentor and a great role model. Actually, we're both aspiring to be like him, right?
Yes.
And I also understand you have a podcast that actually, to be honest with you, I've also been sneak previewing, and I cannot wait to be on your podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast, please, before we continue, please? This is actually a good introduction so that everybody in the world will have to check out his podcast. His podcast is epic. I'm not kidding. It is epic. All right. You have to check it out. Please go ahead. Tell us a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Ayo. So the podcast name, of course, is Africa Chat Show, where essentially I just talk about stuff that goes on around Africa, some certain things that in my own preview or my own understanding, I see as being mostly misinterpreted by the Western world or people that've never really been familiar with Africa or Africans as a community. For example, I talk about stuff like traditional rights or married traditional performances that people do in Africa and actually now starting doing it outside of Africa. And then other people with different type of cultures would see it. And then most of the time, without researching or without asking any questions, they'll just go ahead and criticize it. So it was actually something that I was actually hoping I would have a mouthpiece for years. And finally I decided, I think it's time to create something that we would actually be like a pivotal standpoint in the society. And with the help of YouTube, try to re-educate some of these people who actually even enlarging the understanding of how Africans live and what Africa really is. I just don't talk about it. I also talk about encouraging people to just not read about it, come to Africa to go visit. And I'm talking also to people now that have actually been in this same situation and actually volunteered to go take a look at it and see how Africa is. So when they return, most of the time, I try to get in touch with people like that and ask for them to tell or testify to the rest of the world what they saw.
Yeah,
Just to confirm the theory. Yeah, so that's what Africa Chat is.
That is good.
Yes.
Thank you. I really, I think there is a space for that, most especially the fact that now there is, there is this desire from our brothers and sisters here in diaspora interested in connecting with Africa, their motherland. It's a great service that you're doing, at least, bringing awareness to what the culture, what the tradition is, so that even before they get there, it's not going to be a shock. Many times, a lot of them come to me, they ask me questions. Why do you guys do that? Right? Or the favorite conversation that I like to have is food. It's over food. Everybody loves food. But even today, I had a conversation with my student. She was asking me, do you know crank crank? I said, crank crank? I've never heard of crank crank. Then she said, well, let me show it to you. Let me show it to you. So, and then we went online, and then she showed me crank crank, but there are a different way of making crank crank, but that originates from Sierra Leone, right? And she wanted to know what part of Africa I am from, so I told her. But the point is, they're really curious, they're really interested. So having a show like a podcast like yours, I think is needed, especially at this time. So thank you for doing that, Gideon. I think you have longevity on that, especially now that there is a spirit and the desire to connect to the motherland. So I know you have been working as a computer network engineer. So I was really interested because I really wanted to see, I want to talk to people that are doing great things, innovative things, especially in the STEM field. You know about the statistics, there's a low representation of African American or minorities in the STEM field, and now computer engineering and programming, software technology seems to be really very, very big, but there are low representation of our people. You're young, and I'm hoping that by inviting you and talking with you, and they see someone like themselves doing this, then it will take away the fear of saying, oh, I cannot really do that, or the intimidation or the low self-esteem that they may feel. One of the things that I do also at school right now is I try to be a support for some of my students who may be interested in going into computers and computer technology. So, and I want them to hear from you and many other students to hear from you. So because you're a network engineer, and I know when you were in college, you did coding and you have a lot of programming knowledge. So how important is coding and programming knowledge in today's job market? What is the potential? how important is it in today's job market? And what advice do you have for young people who want to improve their coding skill, please?
Well, thank you, Professor. So, in the world of coding itself, I think most of the time the name comes or explains itself, especially to me. With coding, it actually speeds up the process and the scalability of things. For example, now looking at fast forward to 2023, there's Amazon Web Service, AWS, there's Google Cloud, and all sorts of different type of like cloud technologies that came about. All of these actually kind of like grew from people that did a lot of programming and coding just because they just wanted to speed up the process. For example, in Amazon has been able to come up with a certain set of codes that instead of manually creating accounts for 2,000 new employees that you hired last month, there's a set of code that you can actually put in there. All you have to do is get all the employees' names listed, feed it to the program or the code that you wrote, and then just hit enter.
Wow.
You could just walk away, come back an hour or two, however long it takes. You are sure that it's always going to be faster than actually sitting down manually creating users.
Wow.
So on that side, we're saving money. We're saving too much long hours of labor and what have you. You know, everybody wins at the end of the day. The engineer gets to go home early. The company is actually creating and being efficient. And at the end of the day, it's like overall, there's kind of like the efficiency for people to do jobs faster than we used to be. And coding has always been one of the reasons why there's so many technologies that has been innovated. Talk of Tesla, talk of Alexa, all of that technology, you could say the backbone of it was originated from people coding and creating programs.
Wow, wow. When I think about coding, I think about one of the courses that I have to take as an undergraduate was Fortran. So in Fortran, it's an old program, so it requires
Yeah, I heard about it just now.
right. It appears that things have evolved since then. So really now it's more simpler, it's more sophisticated, it's not as elaborate and frightening as people really will think. I should have asked you this question first. What are some misconceptions about computer science and STEM career, and how can we help students dispel them?
The easiest one is people think it's only certain type of geniuses that can do computers, technology itself. But I'm just here to tell you it's not true. It's just like any other skill that you can learn, understand it, and actually create and recreate your new stuff with it as well too. So that's the most misunderstood concept about it. Because most people, for example, whenever I say I'm a network engineer, they're like, "Oh, you must be really smart." Well, in as much as it's an honor to be seen as a smart person, I wouldn't also lie to you that I don't know everything. You know, so most people think that you know everything, and also because you're a computer engineer or you know computer science, you know everything that is computer related. People actually think that you could fix their TVs and stuff like that. So those are the kind of misunderstanding because everybody has a different field.
Yeah.
I'm a network engineer. There are certain programming languages or certain things that I couldn't do.
Wow.
And you would have to give it to the other person who's an actual programmer who would come up with the program and then show me how to run it, and then I'll take it from there. So those are some of like the petty misunderstandings that I could just come off of my head right now.
Wow. So if I take it right, so when we talk about computer science, it is actually a broad field, and there are different specialty and areas of expertise.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Just like the hospital. You go to the hospital, there's a surgeon, there's an eye doctor, orthopedic, what have you, but they're all called doctors.
Wow.
just like we all will be called probably IT engineers or just the IT guy, but I have what I do and I have what I know and I have my limits of what I can do and what I cannot. But most people just, that's the very common mistake people do. They just take it as you know everything and everything computer related. An engineer or IT person should be able to fix it, but that's not true.
Wow. So do you learn all this? Do you become? I'm glad that you mentioned it's kind of like doctors. Like okay, doctors they go to medical school, and after 4 years, then they do their residency, right, whereby they focus on areas of expertise. Is it similar to computer science? I mean, finding your niche, or do you learn this from college, like the areas that you want to be? Do you learn it from college, or do you, once you finish college, then you get a job, then you learn, you become a specialist at a particular area? Is that how it goes? Or
Well, that's an excellent question. I think with everybody that you meet
okay,
with this type of question, they may answer it or understand it in a different way. So I'm
okay,
going to answer it the best way that I possibly can in my own understanding.
okay,
In my own understanding, there are two ways. For example, you can have someone like myself. Ever since I was a kid, I started working on computers, taking it apart, putting it back
wow,
together, running internet cables, like I mentioned earlier, splicing fiber and doing stuff that was network related. I was only concerned about and I was intrigued about how the computer went online, which is the internet, which is kind of connected to a network engineer's perspective, knowing what an IP address is, knowing what a MAC address is, knowing what they do. So even when at the time that I was in college, that was all I was interested in. And so I took networking. When I went to the student advisor and I was like, look, I want to do computer something, but I don't know what. So he was like, what are you interested in? So I told him what I'm telling you right now. I want to know how computers connect and they go online. What does that cable do? What does this do? And he was like, he looked at me and he smiled. He's like, oh, so you're a network engineer or you're a network guy? And I was like,
wow.
yes. What can I do? So then I registered to be going into the network communication class, which I happen to have Dr. Keeve as my professor and stuff like that. Even before that, I had already, like I mentioned earlier, I was doing that. So I
Yeah.
knew what I wanted to do. Now, the second option is there's some people that were doing something else. They just really didn't catch the niche, like you said, on time. And then they get to a point and they actually develop an interest in computer, but they just specifically don't know what branch they want to go. Just like I said, most of the people that you meet, they just know you are a computer guy, but they just don't know exactly that, oh, this is your limit, this is your department, this is what you do. So if such a person wants to now become a computer engineer or just to do something professional with computers, they wouldn't know. So in that case, that person would first of all try to find out most of the prerequisite stuff that they would do in college, which I think most of the time the student advisors do a better job at it and give a suggestion. Maybe you should start with general computer knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of people and met a lot of people that started with general computer knowledge. And at the end of the day, they're like, I think I like programming. You know what? I think I like network engineering. I think I like security because people are doing so much bad stuff, taking other people's information. So I'm kind of motivated to prevent that. And what do I need to do? But after maybe the first 6 months or the first year, even in college, is when they get to know that. And then there's a third option that I don't want to say is a third option is there's someone that doesn't go to college or have already graduated from college, did,
Yes.
for example, business management, but they
Yes.
want to do computer now. That's when there's boot camps, there's self-study, and that's after you had actually developed an interest in a certain field again, and then now you pursue that because you already have a degree. Most of the time, it's not advisable to go back to college
Mm-hmm.
and redo it. So that's just the third option, but not so much of an option if you ask me, because that's just you coming out of nowhere to start afresh and getting the feel of it and trying to see where you belong in that new field that you want to go. But the two main is going to college, already knowing what you want to do, which most people do. Like myself, I already did. And then when people don't know, so they just take the general computer class, develop the interest as they go, and then they pick the path. Just like the doctors, they go together the first 4 years.
Yes.
They go to the internship basically, and then develop on the skills. And then by the time they get out of that internship, which is the them working with qualified doctors. So by the time they get out, they already at that point should have some idea what they want to really focus so much or put so much attention to.
Thank you for teasing that out. I'm sure you've heard about some governors, even some leaders are advocating hiring people with skills without college degree. Do you have a take on that, especially as it pertains to computer science?
That's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
So I've been hired for a job because I had a degree. And the main reason why they were interested was because I had a degree in computer science.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a job offered to me because I had a certain specialization or a specialized certification that's only concentrating on a certain scale in computer science. Mm-hmm. I would say the government is somewhat wrong.
Okay.
And also right, because at the end of the day, you could find people, like I said, that didn't have computer degree at all. Okay. And they can get an IT job and become really like the top dog. Okay. In just a few years. It depends on the commitment. Okay. So if you deprive that person a job opportunity because they don't have a degree in IT or computer science, then you're kind of like not being fair. Yes. At the same time, there's this other guy that went to college that thought that was what they wanted to do because it's a preference. Did it, got a degree, came out, and you give them a computer job and they also do good. So I don't think that focusing on just on one side. I mean, I'm not the one to decide, but in this case, since you're asking me, I will say we should keep as it is right now by giving people the opportunity if we think they deserve it. Because some people will actually be able to just go for a computer boot camp for 3 months, for 6 months, come out, and they're really good at it, you know, and then they can get a job and do good. And then there's some people that prefer to go to college, you know, so we can't really like focus on one side, if you ask me, and say, okay, well, since now learning computer has become that you can actually just learn it without going to college, we should just forget about college. The college and the education itself, like the formal standardized way that school has been set up, shouldn't ever be frowned upon. It shouldn't be looked down upon. I've been to college. Well, if you ask me now, with what I know and where I'm at, would I probably would have gone to college back then? I will probably say no. And that's just because it's now. But back then, I really had the option to not go to college. Yes. Pursue the other option, but I still went to college. So that's just my my peace of mind. But I think we should keep both. And actually, if someone is good, they're good. That's just what it is, especially with computers.
Right. Yeah, times has changed. The same thing with me, but I am sort of on the other end. I will always advocate for college because as far as I'm concerned, I feel there are a lot of potential when you have that college degree, especially in regards to upward movement. There is that potential. Then there is a potential of best practices that you learn.
And then, didn't mean to cut you off, Doc, but just to add it, for example, when I went to college,
yes,
I did something that's not related to computers. I took a public speaking class.
Yeah.
It was required that I took a public speaking class. Guess what? years down the line, I have a video podcast. Where do you think I got that skill from?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna sit here and lie about it. It was hard, but I took the courage, I took the experience that I'm using right now, doing video interviews, doing public, actually doing job interviews,
Yes,
because I took a public speaking class and I was pushed.
yes.
Years back, I would have never turned on the camera and sit behind a camera just because. I wouldn't have done that. But I did have a teacher, a professor in DeVry University in my public speaking class that knew I was a good writer. So forcefully chose me to be the team lead, even though we had a team lead. And he said, "Who wrote this?" And they're like, Gideon kind of started it. I started a thesis, and she was like, "Who wrote this?"
Wow.
And they were like, Gideon, she was like, "You're the team lead now."
Wow.
I don't want to talk. Well, that's why you're the team lead. We learn, and it's helped me out.
Yeah.
Boot camps, you're just going to go to boot camp. They're going to show you exactly what you came for. If you came to learn about AWS, you do AWS. They encourage you to take the certification, you take it. Got so good, you pass, you're gone. You're at the door. That's what you paid for, In college, you pay for knowledge, but at the same time, my dad used to say you pay for what is the word, for lack of better words, you pay for shaping up yourself to be able to fit in the community as well. You're not just paying for the degree or the knowledge that you're going to use to go get a job.
Yeah.
You're taught how to become a person in the community as well too. So let's remember that when we talk about boycotting college overall.
I'm glad. Thank you so much for that point. It's a great point about one of the importance of college. At least it exposes you to different type of skills. Who will ever have taught? I myself, like you, public speaking was a problem for me coming from Africa, right? Especially because of our culture. There is certain demeanor that how we're supposed to hold ourselves. So, but coming to a different culture, so it's a big transition. And now who will ever have thought that I'll be doing a podcast? But I'm so grateful the fact that, yes, when I was in college, not only do I focus in the sciences, but there are other, skills that I also learned from college, which are very critical in my success today. So that is a really great. The only thing I would like to say is they need to make sure that the cost of college doesn't continue to skyrocket. You need to bring it down. You need to bring that cost down, right? It's very, very important.